Hello,
Hi, Zach. How are you?
I'm Granby. Do you ever you just said 170, so I was like, okay, what am I going to say to start?
Mm-hmm.
What's the highest you've ever counted in your life? One, two,
Well, one of the things that
by ones.
by ones. I was gonna say when I try to fall asleep, sometimes I'll like count prime numbers just to see, just to kind of clear my head.
Wow.
But that doesn't get very high either.
Did you ever get into Wordle?
No, I've never done it.
You know they have a new game.
No.
It's called Connections, where
Hmm.
you're trying to pair four things together, and you have 16 words to choose from. Was that New York Times? Is that what it is?
I think so.
Are they a big game shop? I mean, I guess, the media world is so interesting how some parts are shrinking, some are increasing and going crazy. It's interesting to me that a world where the premise is still the same, let's just say content,
Mm-hmm.
the media aspect of that, the actual platform of that thing, some people are innovating with it and some people aren't. And it's quite interesting to see that the old school traditional stuff is.
Yeah. The people that are not, I guess it's with everything, right? If you're not innovating, it's just a slow ride to the bottom.
Why do you think that is with specifically like traditional journalism, that they're not up with the times where clearly content is bigger than ever? Why do you think
I
they're
don't
not
know. I
innovating?
mean, I don't know. Do they operate out of fear? Yeah, that they're trying to squeeze every last penny that they can. I mean, revenues are tough. And I mean, that's just, boy, not the
I
place
don't
I
know.
want to be. I don't know either.
But innovation obviously is important. And so, like we said, some companies growing, some people not. Innovation is going to be the topic of discussion today, I think. Maybe. We'll see. Maybe it'll be Busch Gardens. Um, maybe it won't. Dustin Dunbar, how's it going?
It's going really well. I can't complain. So I'm inside, staying cool. Got a cup of coffee and a glass of water, and I'm excited to talk about whatever is on everybody's minds today, especially mine. So
Are you afraid of the heat? Is that what I'm hearing?
I do not like the heat. I'm a mountain man. I'm a
Are you?
mountain. Yeah, I'm a mountain man. Like I love the snow. I hate beaches straight up. I'm just not a beach guy. It's so boring sometimes, just sitting on a beach and just looking out at the open expanse and the horizon.
It is interesting
Yeah,
that they're beach people and they're mountain people, and very rarely do the two. Do you get people that like both? But it's usually one or the other.
yeah. No,
I've never heard of the beach being boring though. So
I find it extremely boring, but yeah, but
no, I mean it is interesting. You're just staring off into the great yonder, if you will, and it's like
yeah.
I get it.
Maybe it's because I'm not going with the right people, to kind of do entertainment, pick up some games and stuff like that. So maybe it's I had to talk to my wife about it. Maybe I need to like re-examine who we're going to the beach with.
Are you just not a good sandcastle maker? Is that what it is?
I could never figure it out.
Yeah.
I just can never get that right consistency.
Yeah,
with
buying
the
that
sand.
piece, putting
Yeah.
some water in there and pouring it over. It seems really difficult.
Yeah, it is. I was more like a digger, right? Like I just wanted trenches along.
As a kid, building snow
Okay.
forts, though, that was
Mhm.
that was fun stuff.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to quit school and go chase Shaun White around the country and the world and be a professional snowboarder, but wasn't in the cards for me. So here I am.
Tim, can you ski or snowboard?
It's been many years. I think the last time I skied was in Turkey, so that was 20 something years ago.
Wow.
You think muscle memory keeps that up? You think you could do it again?
Well, mentally, I think that it's one of those things that mentally you feel like you can and you remember it, but then once you're on skis, then you realize that we're all getting older, and that sense of balance and flexibility is not not what it once was.
Using muscles you didn't think you weren't using anymore.
Well, I mean, I feel like I could totally jump on a skateboard and thrash around for
Thrash
and do my thing, but yeah, I can't do that anymore. I try.
Yeah, shred some gnar, do it all.
I'm done with the extreme questions. So Tim,
well, I was going to say, yeah, I mean, it's just, so I guess that is interesting though, from a business standpoint, in terms of with the whole innovation aspect, when you're solving a problem. I don't know. I mean, like I recently heard a pitch from a skateboard shop that so everything old becomes new again, or maybe it just never went away. I don't know, but
yeah, that's a great point. I think, kind of what we're seeing a lot, just from my standpoint, when it comes to, innovation, I mean, we see a lot of innovation and great ideas, but when it comes to the greater kind of ecosystem and like the big players that are in that space, when they're looking at innovation, they're not innovating in-house. You're not like the New York Times, right? Or like a Google or an Apple. They're not innovating in-house. They're purchasing the innovation. So you see a lot of these entrepreneurs kind of reaching their exit velocity through acquisition via a Google, an Apple, or large healthcare systems, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're seeing now, is not really the innovation kind of coming from these big players. And so it'll be interesting to see, especially post-COVID, what's the next Facebook, right? Or like the next, I guess now Meta, right? So what's going to be that next company that's truly innovating how we conduct operations? And I think that's kind of what you're looking at when it comes to innovating, besides like the flying cars. It's kind of like, what's the business operation look like?
Where are those flying cars? I mean, this is ridiculous.
I know, right? I've been waiting on it since the Transformers movie, right?
Transformers. I've been waiting for it since Marty McFly. I need a hoverboard or something.
I want that hoverboard.
Yeah, give me something. And we'll talk about the investment side of everything in a minute. But you talked about exits. I mean, is that really what investors care about? Is having an exit?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that in general, on the surface, most investors are going to want to see outsized returns via exit, right? If they're purchased out of position in a Series A, Series B, Series C, or, an IPO. That's how we see our returns on the risk that we took in investing in a company. I think that there are other players out there, though, right now that are focused on actually trying to grow the ecosystem, that are doing it a little bit more focused approach to founders that typically you don't see from, that could be a regional focus, specifically like Southside, Southwest Virginia, right? You don't typically see a lot of investment flowing in there, but you see more focus on investing in the development of those places as an ecosystem as a whole. And then venture capital kind of tends to follow after that. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that venture capital really is focused on, the capital markets, because that's the system that we operate in. But there are players out there that are double bottom line funds, are specifically, right? VIPC is focused on building the ecosystem as well as building out outsized returns for the Commonwealth of Virginia. That's our investor, right? Is the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Yeah. So for those that don't know Dustin is from the Virginia Innovation Partnership Corporation, VIPC, and specifically, you are on the venture side with. So go into Virginia Venture Partners and what you guys are all about.
Yeah, happy to. So, Tim, like I said, we're a double bottom line fund. Not only are we trying to invest in companies here based in Virginia, we're trying to build that entrepreneurial ecosystem in Virginia as well. So VIPC has multiple arms that are trying to accomplish that. My team is the equity investment arm. That's Virginia Venture Partners. And we're making investments at the pre-seed and seed stage level. So that's $200,000 checks up to $1 million checks. And we're trying to maintain that relationship with the company, and that we want to come in at the pre-seed stage and help them get to that Series A, and hopefully help them network and really kind of make grow their company, because in the end we see a growing entrepreneurial ecosystem as beneficial for us because of, one, jobs, and two, the economy. We want to see a really robust and healthy dynamic economy here in Virginia. And so that's our focus. There's other teams within VIPC. We've got the Commonwealth Commercialization Fund. They're really focused on providing grants. I think it's up to $100,000 now, specifically more focused on like tech. They're more tech focused at the very early stages when people are typically raising via family and friends. And then we've got other arms that are focused on grants that are more towards the entrepreneurial ecosystem players. For instance, 757 Angels Accelerator Program. We've got the entrepreneurial ecosystems grants going to programs like that. Lighthouse Labs here in Richmond, Virginia, they receive grants from us as well, because we're really interested in trying to build out that ecosystem, because again, we just want a dynamic economy here in the Commonwealth.
How many people are involved, are part of the venture partner side?
There are 8 of us now. Yeah, we've grown really, really fast.
How do you guys, and then how are you all divided? Is it based on specialty, or is it geography?
It's both, actually. So you'll see Jen O'Daniel she's the investment director in Northern Virginia. So there's a Northern Virginia fund team, and then there's colloquially we call it the rest of Virginia. Anything really south of Fredericksburg along the 64 corridor, and that's Alex Euler's investment team, which I'm a part of. So I cover Richmond. We've got a Charlottesville associate. Alex is in the Newport News, Hampton Roads area. Greg Feldman is a kind of external partner of ours. He's in Roanoke. And then we've got kind of a real kind of focus on, I guess, sectors as well. So Marco Rubin really focused on clean energy, aerospace. Raj, another external partner of ours, really focused on like SaaS platforms, marketplaces, and health, life science, software services. So we kind of try to cover all our bases with that, because we are in the end kind of tech agnostic.
I am interested in hearing more about like what has risen to the surface from a state level standpoint in terms of if we had to report to the federal level saying that, hey, Virginia, this is what we are really, really strong in, what would that be?
I would say the first thing that comes to mind, cybersecurity.
Yeah. Is that primarily in Northern Virginia?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just because of the, when you think of kind of like venture capital in an ecosystem, when they're coming into regional areas, they're going to look at that talent that's coming out of the workforce. And it's all coming out of, the DoD, Department of Defense, contractors, and as well as like veterans coming out of the military. So Northern Virginia is heavy with cybersecurity.
Well, isn't like 90% of all internet traffic goes through Northern Virginia? It's some crazy number.
I mean, that would be insane to think about. That's crazy. And I kind of makes sense with the data centers that we're putting in Virginia. Yeah. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And I think that we had a guest earlier that has a data center, but yeah, it just, and that just continues to grow and grow and grow. 70% of the world's internet traffic flows through data centers in Northern Virginia.
Wow.
And that 70% of the world. I mean, that's fascinating.
That is incredible.
And every week at Thursday at about 11:15, it decides to not work at my house
because all that traffic's flowing up to Nova.
So a lot of people have said Nova, and then the rest of Virginia is nothing compared to Northern Virginia. When you're looking at from like an innovation perspective, from a growth perspective, and things like that, when you look at list and I don't know that you actually have ever done this, but when you look at like the list and Virginia's best in business or top 5 in business state and stuff like that, is that really because of Northern Virginia, or are they really looking at the full state aspect of that? Like, is it without that? Do you think Virginia? Do you think that Northern Virginia alone is kind of winning that award, or do you really feel like it's a state award?
So I think it's mostly a holistic approach, because while there is a lot of economy generated out of Northern Virginia, most our largest export from the Commonwealth, and that drives our GDP, is agriculture. That is the largest export. That's our biggest driver of GDP here in the Commonwealth. So it's really kind of more of a holistic approach. When it comes to innovation, I will say pre-COVID, I would say a lot of it was coming from Virginia. All right, I'm sorry, Northern Virginia. But now, because of COVID and people, migrating out and trying to, work from home, doing the remote work aspect of life, and trying to, live that American dream of owning property that doesn't, cost you an arm and a leg, it's really driven innovation outwards. And we're seeing a lot of, people, from Richmond now, especially, and surprisingly, I guess I shouldn't say surprisingly, but to me, it was a surprise. I see a lot of great entrepreneurs coming out of Roanoke as well. There's just a really good ecosystem there in Roanoke, from around the life sciences and healthcare aspect. And you see a lot of kind of more CPG, consumer packaged goods, really good businesses coming out of the Newport News area. So it's weird how these kind of regional focuses happen. But I think it's just because like minds attract like minds. That's my theory.
I didn't know that about agriculture. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it makes sense. I thought it would have been data centers, but I guess no one really works at a data center, right? These big buildings, 70% of the world.
It's just
2
like
people work there.
Yeah, it's like what's that? The scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh.
It's just like nobody in there.
Swell. I mean, they're everywhere up there.
Yeah.
Did you see any yesterday, Tim? I mean,
well, the thing about it is you really don't even you
don't know.
not even realize.
Yeah.
We did go by a building that was being constructed. That was going to be another data center that was being. It's wild.
It's wild up there.
Yeah, Meta is putting a lot in. Like Meta, Facebook is putting a lot of data centers in Virginia. It's crazy.
Yeah, is that? I'm surprised that in terms of the is it transatlantic underwater cabling that goes in, that more is not talked about with that. I mean, that's just it's a big deal.
Yeah, I'm still amazed that that's a thing, right? Like that we actually did that as humans,
right? And yeah,
it's
just yeah, that is super, super wild.
Well, I mean, maybe they'll find the. Never mind. I'm not going to make it bad.
Find the kaijus.
I'm not going to make a bad joke. I think Microsoft have a huge data center in like Surrey County, like their biggest data center or something like that.
I'm not sure.
Out in the middle of nowhere. I think Kevin Curry used to tell me about that. Like, Kevin Curry, right, Tim?
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a lot of like just not known things or not talked a lot about things, but from a data center perspective. So do you think that with that cable being here, that's going to bring a bunch of data centers? Is that the idea? What have you heard about that?
From what I understand, that like Facebook, Microsoft, or Meta, that they're all looking to expand here. But I mean, to me, and to your point, Zach, I mean that's all news that should be shared and talked about. Having these the anchor type businesses to build around. I mean, we have so much that we can take advantage of. That it's nice to see ecosystems being developed. I mean, so like Dustin, is there other states that do the whole venture partner thing at the state level, or is it unique to Virginia?
No, it's not unique to us. There are other states that do that. There are states that probably do less investment than we do. But, one state that we kind of modeled our investment into other venture capital funds was North Carolina. So they led the way, I would say, in how they did investing from the state to other venture capital funds in like a fund of fund manner. So we took their playbook in a couple other states. But, the other day I had a call with Tennessee, and they were kind of holding a Launch Tennessee quarterly report. And I just kind of wanted to see how they were going about their investment thesis. So there's a lot of kind of shared knowledge that passes between our states. And I think, we have a friendly rivalry with Maryland's, kind of battling over these DC companies of where they're going to go. And, happy to report that, Virginia's winning out on those. But we've got some good friends over there in Tedco out of Maryland because they're trying to do the same thing as we are.
So what's the large grand vision in terms of, obviously you're invested in these companies, you want to see a return. What is the end goal? Is it, the returns that you all get, does that then allow you to invest in more companies and then it just continues to cycle through?
Yeah. It's essentially becomes an evergreen fund. And the money flows two directions, back to us to invest in more companies, and also back to the Commonwealth of Virginia. So, in two ways, as if we make an outsized return, as well as the hopefully tax revenue that we generate through more jobs and companies being propped up here. So I think in the long run, what we like to see is more venture capital firms focusing in on areas outside of Northern Virginia that are coming to other parts of Virginia to really kind of generate that entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I think, we're trying to avoid that, the Silicon Valley model where it's all focused in one area and try to spread it out and have pockets that really kind of generate that throughout the Commonwealth. Because, as you can see in Roanoke, they're really building around the Carilion. And there's a lot of kind of venture capital being stood up there. James Ramey, great guy, really knee deep in it in Roanoke and really helping that ecosystem out. And then you've got RBTC, the Roanoke Blacksburg Tech Council, doing a lot there. So, you're kind of seeing now the focus migrating to Hampton Roads. And so we're doing what we can. And I think the end goal is for us to kind of be there to help out in the very beginning of the stages, and then hopefully just kind of be that, ignition spark to really kind of generate everything else and be catalytic in that aspect. And that's what we want to be.
Are you typically, do you typically follow a deal or do you lead deals? Is there any idea what that mix is, or do you not lead at all?
We will lead. We will lead around. Typically we won't lead though. We like to see the round kind of coming together. And then we'll come in, especially with the way we receive our funds. We receive both from the federal and the state level. So we have to see a match in order to deploy those funds. We can still deploy without a match, but we have a larger pool of money to match funds with. So we like to see other investors kind of putting the round together, and then we'll come in and hopefully, be that keystone, really. That's the way we like to look at it.
And then another quick question. Do you guys do follow-on funding with? Yep. You will.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do follow-ons, just very, typically we like to maintain that relationship, but we're also standing up a new fund, hopefully here in the next year or two, that takes some of the really good returns we've had and make larger investments on a company that's doing really well at a Series A and a Series B round. So, you're talking multi-million-dollar fundraisers and hopefully participating in that 7-figure range.
I don't know the answer to this. Either of you can answer it. 15 years ago, 13 years ago, it seemed like ecosystems started becoming a buzzword. Is that a factual statement, or do you think they've been going around forever? Like you mentioned Silicon Valley, it seems like everyone at some point was trying to copy them in some sort of way. Is ecosystem things, is that a fairly new phenomenon, if you will?
I don't know, to tell you the truth. I feel like, it's definitely a buzzword, that's for sure. We use it a lot. And I think that when we're trying to define an ecosystem, I think really what we want to do is, define it as something that's dynamic versus something that's very focused on a certain sector, right? And, you could think of Silicon Valley as really focused on that kind of SaaS sector, right? That software sector. And I think that, we as a Commonwealth are focused more on trying to create something that's a little bit more dynamic than just focused on one sector. Because again,
dynamic meaning diverse in companies.
Yeah, diverse. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, and that's, Main Street businesses, right? And everything kind of feeds into itself. That's where that kind of ecosystem stuff comes into. You got, Tim mentioned that anchor business, right? I think about Capital One here in Richmond and how many people spin out of Capital One to start up their own company. It really is kind of amazing. So that is this kind of ecosystem, right? Where you have an anchor business coming because of the talent and the workforce that is here, and then that talent being developed at a Capital One and then spinning out and creating other fintech firms or other software firms. And then that drives more business. People are coming here, and spouses are, doing other jobs that are more focused maybe on the Main Street, so it is definitely an ecosystem in that aspect.
Yeah, I think to add to that, like the next thing to follow suit is really it's a culture. It's instilling that. Just like if you want to do music, you go to Nashville. If you want movies, you go to LA. Comedy, New York. But I think we've got to create the culture. I mean, building the ecosystem, but then people really buying in. This is really important. And yeah, I've heard a lot of great things about Roanoke. Really cool stuff happening there. It's
what do you think about ecosystems though? Because it like, I don't know, as a guy that maybe pushed that thing for a while, I wonder if you can actually force them to be built, or if they actually have to happen organically.
I think that it has to be organic, and that's where the culture piece comes in.
Yeah. And all of these cities across the country I feel like are trying to force things, and it's like, but those things happen for a reason. The San Francisco things happen because there was some sort of culture of really smart people coming together into a thing. And so like, I do think that aspect is incredibly important. Yeah. Let's figure out how to get all those collisions to happen, the serendipity to happen in a specific room. But yeah, it's interesting that that the world is kind of pushing that. And then you have like the state by state or city by city, state by state, ordeal, if you will, when really are we competing worldwide against other places? And then there's that kind of appetite that I don't think gets brought up a lot, especially in technology.
Well, I mean, it's interesting that you say that. Just like in the sense of like right now, Qatar. I mean, the Middle East. They know they're running out of oil. They know the world is moving away from oil with electrification and yeah.
Is that what it's called? Qatar? It's not Qatar. What is it?
It's both.
I was just thinking the same thing. Like, I actually don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, it's said both ways, but they are like from their sovereign wealth fund, they are diverting a lot of that, and there is a really big focus on creating that entrepreneurial ecosystem and there.
So is that why all the Saudi money is starting to roll in too, because the oil is becoming a thing that
they know they need to do something. They gotta expand into other areas. And so and that's the whole thing, like, which it's great that we're that we have a VIPC that's enabling us to invest in different ecosystems and companies and whatnot. It's just, we've got to focus on it. I mean, because if we don't, I mean, as we all know, founders are going to go wherever where it's opportunity, there's funding, and it's easy to do business.
Yeah, completely agree. It's very true. Yeah, and it's I think, when you talk about developing, these ecosystems, people want to go where they know they can do well and have a high likely chance of success, and want to be supported, as well as want to find that talent that exists. Right? Where's the talent? I think it's easier to access talent these days because of remote work, and I can't think of a single company that we've invested in that's has like all their people in one place, right, in an office. So it is kind of strange trying to figure that one out.
So with regard to that, if you're all the remote work, as long as it's headquartered in Virginia, then they qualify for investment. They knowing that there's going to be remote workers out of state, or
yeah, exactly, Tim. Yeah, we want the headquarters has to be here in Virginia. Majority of the C-suite and the CEO needs to be focused here in Virginia, because really in the end, while the talent could be coming from Utah, California, Texas, anywhere really, when it comes to developing the software or developing the tech, we want to see that CEO here in Virginia with the headquarters here, and we see that in the end, while some people might be doing remote work from out of state, most of the remote work is going to be in state, just because of the connections and the natural networks that you have with people. Because you still can't beat face to face. You still can't beat it.
Especially from a hardware standpoint. I mean, you can. I am convinced you could. The iPhone never would have been developed with a remote workforce. I don't see how it could ever happen. So I think.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a portfolio company that's moving to Danville just because of the tech that he's working on, and he needs the manpower. He needs the manpower to be hands on, and it doesn't exist here in Richmond. So he's got to go find it, and it's in Danville, Virginia, right now, because they've got a great ecosystem around advanced manufacturing. But yeah, to your point, like, so you still can't beat the face to face.
Is Twitter really called X now?
Yeah,
I still think it's called Twitter, right?
No, they formerly it's now X. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Do they actually own the rights to that though? Isn't there?
I know.
Doesn't Microsoft?
That was Elon's first company.
Yeah, he's tried to keep this X thing going in all his companies, but I know they don't own it in Japan, and that's a major user base for him, is Japan.
And so it's not a rib, it's not a joke, it's the real thing.
No, so yeah, it's this has been his master plan, Elon's master plan for a really, really long time, and so he made the determination that it was quicker for him to acquire Twitter and build it off of the Twitter platform than it would be for him to build it from zero.
Oh, I see.
I see what you're saying, because you're talking about like when he was with the PayPal, right? Because PayPal, and that makes sense, because I just heard like an interview the other day where he was talking about trying to make this like a payment system as well.
Yeah. So X is going to become like the everything app. It's going to be a mega app where you'll be able to payment processing, and so yeah.
Did he already own that domain?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know what he acquired it for way back when?
I have no idea.
So what, 26 people own a one-letter domain ish? I mean, I don't know that I've ever been to a one-letter domain before until I looked at that and I said, that's interesting.
Yeah. I would be very wary of typing in x.com, you know?
Yeah. So what do you guys look for? Like when you get in, I've never applied or tried to get any funding through you guys, but let's say I'm going through the process. Am I just going online, filling out some paperwork, and hoping that you guys like what you see? Is that the immediate thing? Like what makes the best proposal for someone to get funded by you guys?
That's a great question, Zach. So I think for us, what we really like to see is, just kind of at the stages that we invest in, we like to see an actual product that's kind of been tested, that's generating just a little bit of revenue or is just about to generate revenue. That's the sweet spot for us. However, we are always willing to meet with anybody. It's just part of our mandate. So it's an open application process on our website. Anybody can apply. And once that application hits our web form, we have to meet with you. And I know some people in VIPC and Virginia Venture Partners might be like, please don't apply unless you have a great product already. I would say do it anyways, because I think it always helps you to practice. Come forward, pitch, get in front of as many people as you can, because you're always trying to perfect your art of the pitch, of telling your story, getting that narrative down on what you're really trying to sell. And it also helps just kind of building a network as well, because you never know where it's going to go. And I will say most people are really willing to pay it forward. I know I am, because the only way I got this job is someone paid it forward for me by taking time out of their day to tell me what it's like to work in venture capital. And what venture capital looks like. So I definitely recommend anybody applying. But I will say, with the people that we invest with, along with other venture capital funds, it is that, hey, I've got a fundraise. I'm trying to raise $1.5 million because I need to get to this stage. And you got to kind of have those stages laid out on like why you need the money, where that money gets you. Does it get you this, many customers? If I get $1 million, I can generate sales and leads, and that gets me to, a valuation of this, right? So I think, really trying to get out there and, pitching people, you should have something that's put together versus like an idea. But at the same time, if you have an idea and you're just trying to figure it out, just talk to people.
What have you seen on the valuation side? If things was in the 21, 22 timeframe, did you see that they were really, really escalated like they were across the US? And are we back to reality, or do you still see founders that are asking for way too high evaluation?
Yeah, I would say that, definitely COVID was generating really, really astronomical market valuations. And we are back to reality. I will say the one area that hasn't been hit as hard when it comes to valuations is the pre-seed stage. And I think because pre-seed has always maintained like a really good level of reality. So that's always kind of been like the benchmark. And those valuations haven't sunk at all. I do see a lot of entrepreneurs coming in that haven't generated revenue that are asking, for a $15 million valuation. That's, that's
no product.
There's a conversation that needs to be had there, like, hey, that's a little much. You kind of need to get some revenue before you can ask for that money.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but
if someone's willing to pay for it, though, I will say, if someone's willing to pay for it, you'll see people come in, and investors will come in, and they'll be like, you know what? We like you. We like this idea. We're going to pay at this valuation. And you only need that one investor to believe in your story and your valuation, and others will jump on board. It's true. So you'll still see those outliers.
Yeah, but they still have to grow into that valuation when they to for the next round of funding.
Yes,
it's going to catch up to them at some point.
Yeah. So we did see kind of some flat. We haven't seen any down rounds, but we have seen some flat rounds, and it is what it is. But
that said, how do you all work in terms of recognizing your portfolio? Is it just based on just hard exits, or like when the money hits the account, cash in, cash out, or
Yeah, we do two. We do realized and unrealized gains. So, when cash hits realized, unrealized is just kind of based on valuations. We use a database that's provided to us. And that's, really that's the unrealized of like, hey, the had a fundraise at this valuation, and that's an unrealized gain for us. That's typically how we evaluate our portfolio management.
and is there? I mean, so if you is there indigestion going on in terms of with companies that you've written checks to before now that valuations are coming back down, or is
no, I wouldn't say so much. I think that there was a lot of worry.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs were really worried, and I will say a lot of people were really worried, especially with the Silicon Valley Bank fall through,
right?
and the run on that. So people were really worried, but I think that entrepreneurs have proved to be really resilient in recognizing that this is just a blip.
Did you
And
see?
that-
Did you have companies? Do we have Virginia-based companies? A bank with Silicon Valley Bank?
Yeah, we had. I think we had 100.
Wow.
Yeah, that didn't have like huge, right? Like $1 million or so in the bank, but it's just that was such a major player in venture debt and like how
Yeah.
people were accessing money, that people had payable accounts. Mostly it was for accounts payable to pay their employees. That's where they had their bank accounts with Silicon Valley Bank. So people were really worried there. But yeah, like I said, entrepreneurs are really resilient, really adaptive, recognize that they just need to get tight on cash and be more efficient in generating revenues with the cash that they have on hand. And so what we've seen in our portfolio is they've got it down. There's a little bit of struggle, but there was a struggle at the beginning anyways to get that company started. So the struggle is just always part of it. That's part of the journey. And I think our entrepreneurs have proved to be the more, stronger in that aspect.
I agree.
So in the case of those 100 companies with Silicon Valley Bank, well, what were the conversations like? What happened? Did they lose a significant amount of money? Were they able to?
Yeah, they were able to recoup all their accounts payable because it was that weekend, right? It was like crash on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, people kind of scrambling because, they had to write employee checks on a Wednesday, right? And then, very fortunate that, came in and the Fed came in and was like, hey, well, we'll get it all. I mean, there's pros and cons of that, kind of play. But we would have had quite a few companies that would have been strung up on paying employees.
So the government backed everyone out, or
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Late Sunday night. They came through.
Yeah. We were. I think. I think the government here in Virginia was trying to figure out how they could possibly do something for the entrepreneurial ecosystem and that aspect as well. I think they were working through the weekend. Trying to figure out how they could support some of those accounts payable.
Wow. The government prints cash for a living, so I mean, they can find
a
couple billion
I wish I could, right?
Hey, just run for office and somehow get in there. Yeah, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Wild. Dustin, do you all have a due diligence team, or is that all part of your job description?
Yeah, you're looking at them.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, that's so our due diligence team is our team. Our investment directors are involved as on due diligence as much as the associates are. So it really is, and we're digging in through market research, references. References are a big one because at this stage when it comes to pre-seed investments, really what we're buying in on is whether or not we believe in the entrepreneur. So references are a big one for us.
So who's providing the reference? The actual company, or do you guys?
And then we're doing our own as well. We're doing, background checks as well as, calling people that we know that have worked in that space on whether or not, hey, can we run some ideas by you?
Because references on a resume are always kind of funny to me. Who's going to put some donkey on there that's not going to give them like an A+ report card? It's just, or maybe people will put the,
but you'll be surprised, Zach, on when you get a reference call, and we've had some bad reference calls where people are like, It's like, oh, all right. Well, I mean, you're the person that they recommended. So yeah, that's the first kind of red flag, I would say. Yeah.
What are touching on due diligence? What are the biggest? What's the number one, number two area that the entrepreneurs or founders fall short in the due diligence that you find trouble with?
I will say a pet peeve of mine is just not a clean data room. If you are serious about fundraising, have a clean data room, and that's like a Google Drive, Dropbox, Box.com, anything where you can have like all your company financials, your operating statements, and stuff like that. Because any venture capital firm or any angel investor is going to want to see that. So that's typically kind of a little bit of a red flag for me. I understand that some people are kind of mad scientists. But if you've got a clean data room that has everything that everybody's looking for, it shows professionalism. And in the end, that's what we want to see. We want to see a professional, because we are entrusting, the Commonwealth of Virginia's money in your business and you. So that's the first thing I'll take note. And then another one is not being able to back up and talk through the assumptions in a financial pro forma. So I know, it's kind of difficult. And I will say it's difficult for founders to kind of walk through, a cash flow, income statement, balance sheet. But I think understanding the principles of what your assumptions are in that financial statement are really kind of be the best conversations you can have with an investor, right? Like, hey, I'm assuming this because based on market trends, right? And that's when you show that you know what you actually know, and that you're worth the salt.
But aren't pro formas just a huge guess? So
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that if you can just talk through the assumptions and just be able to point out where people are going to have their questions, that's going to give people more relief around the risk that they're taking and it not working out. Because if you can talk intelligently to your assumptions, that's what it's worth.
Yeah, I just seen some pretty funny ones where you're like, yo, bro, like, you ain't doing that. Like, hey, I'm gonna make $50 million in year one. I'm like, no, you're not. Like, you're just not. So in banking, aren't there like 4 or 5 C's that they go by? Like character, credit score, things like that. Do you guys follow anything from an actual traditional banking method when looking at companies and the people, or?
No, we don't really follow anything from the banks per se. But I think really for us, it's just I think character is definitely one thing. We've had some investments fall through because we did research and we talked to ex-employees and ex-employers, right? So that is, I think character is a real big issue, because in the end, that's what you're doing. It's all about trust, and you're building a relationship, and it's a two-way street between an investor and an investee. So I think that's a really big point that you brought up, Zach, is character. And then the other one is just, again, when we look at an investment opportunity, do you know what you're talking about? That's what it is. Like, do you know what you're talking about? Can you talk us through? And a pitch presentation is great. It's slick. It's quick. But let's get into those appendices. Like, let's break it down a little bit. Like, let's talk through some of these assumptions. Let's talk about how you really evaluate the market opportunity that you see here.
How long is the due diligence process for you guys typically?
I'd say between 4 to 8 weeks. Between the time that we say, hey, this is our proposal, I would say probably average 6 to 8. Yeah, our quickest will be 4.
And from an investment perspective, when someone, and Tim, maybe you can answer this too, since you do some of that, but like, if you're not well versed in an industry, like, how do you actually know that can see success?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, especially for us, because we're generalists, right? Mm-hmm. You'll see a lot of VC firms kind of have their really kind of tech-driven focus on certain sectors. But what we depend on most is our network. We've got an amazing network of other people that we've invested alongside that really do have that industry knowledge. And then we also have an external investment committee who are successful entrepreneurs, successful investors. So that's really kind of who we depend on with some of these reference calls, right? Like, hey, I don't really understand this market. I don't understand some of these kind of fundamentals. Like, walk me through it. And then we talk through kind of what the general idea of the investment opportunity is. And a lot of times, actually, what we'll do is some of these reference calls will ask the founder, hey, would you mind having a kind of three-way call with this person just to kind of talk through some of the questions that we have? And, more often than not, the founder is happy to do that because they want the investment opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a team aspect is so, I mean, gosh, it's so important. And like to your point, Zach, someone wants, they're going to make $50 million and they have no team. Yeah. I mean, it's just,
they're going to make magic happen.
Yeah. Rule the world.
Yes. So if you guys are writing a check for someone to get through the process, everything's going Granby, they're getting just a check, or what else are they getting from you? What else can they expect to receive from you guys?
Yeah. So I think, one thing that we really bring to the table is the network that we have. And I know I've said this many times, but it is the network of other investors that we have. It's a deep bench of people that we rely on that can help out at the corporate strategy level, advice and mentorship from people that can, either come on the board if they want, or, just kind of help out when you've got certain calls that you need to make. But it's the investor network, I would say. And then we'll be as involved as the founder wants us to be. So typically, we'll come in, everything will be great. We'll have a great handshake. And then it'll all just be based off of that founder's willingness to work with us. If there's questions that we have, hey, can we have a talk? And so you'll see some founders that are just like, hey, thanks for the money, I'm out. And that's a transactional relationship. I understand, no harm, no foul. But, some of the really good founders are going to be the ones that want to have a transformational relationship. And because that's just how their mind works and how they view all the relationships.
Which is really, really important. And I don't understand that aspect of why some founders would find it transactional. I mean, knowing that follow-on funding is going to be something that they're going to need. And
you think it's just not their game? They don't understand that they're not good at that?
I think it is. I think being transformational in relationships, I think is two things. One, you either understand it or you get to understand it, right? But I do see that a lot of people are transactional in some aspects. The vast majority, though, are not transactional. They want to be transformational. They want to have a good effect on people and want to learn from other people as well.
Do you all require monthly or quarterly status reports?
Quarterly. Yeah, we want quarterly, and then we do an annual survey. So we have an annual survey that we require just because of we have to report back to the General Assembly on how well we're doing in generating economic development. So we have an annual survey that we push out to companies. It's just part of the requirements. It's in the contract when you sign to receive investment dollars. But it's just asking how many jobs you created. What's your bottom line look like? Have you recently received other investments? Because that's all kind of just showing how they're growing, and the economy in general in Virginia is growing as well.
Yeah, that was another thing that would just kill me is you write a check to a founder, you hear nothing, no status reports whatsoever until they want that next round of funding, or the bridge round, or whatever the case is. I
have received so many nasty emails when I've asked for that annual survey. But again, vast majority, 90% of people are like, oh yeah, hey, absolutely. Like, not a problem. I'll fill it out. no problem. Thanks for reminding me. I might not get it to it this week. I'll get it to next week.
Yeah.
But some are just like, hey, leave me alone.
Mm.
All right, man. Like, cool.
So
Sorry.
over time with technology getting stronger, you see a lot of companies have less and less employees needed, less and less teammates needed, yet jobs is a requirement as a data point for you. Does that conversation come into play ever where it's like, hey, like we're not going to see like these huge, multi-thousand person companies anymore? It's just not the future. We're going to see companies with, several dozen people. And how does that come into play? Do you see that kind of stuff? Is that really still a thing? Where is that?
Yeah, so we actually don't worry about, we don't have a jobs requirement, right? We don't say, hey, we need you to hire this many people in a certain amount of time when we invest money. But I think that's a really interesting, topic of conversation, though, because what does the future of work look like, right? Like, how many people do you need in your company? And you kind of see it happening in the real world.
Yep.
With all these tech companies dropping people off because there was bloat. There was just a lot of bloat.
There was so much bloat.
Yeah, it was crazy. And they're just dropping all these people despite, overall economic numbers, employment numbers, trickling along and staying very well. But yeah, there was a lot of bloat in tech. So I think that there's now kind of the pendulum swinging back now, especially with COVID, post-COVID, and investment dollars being, not flowing as freely. That the pendulum swung back now to where people are like, hey, we really need to be efficient with who is in our office working for us and what they're generating and how much like revenue we can attach to each person.
Have you seen anything from the AI standpoint starting to hit your inbox with companies looking for funding?
Yeah. We've seen a lot of advanced AI, ML stuff coming through, and it's the spectrum. It's all over the place, from coding, hey, we actually have AI ML to actually code itself, to like, hey, we just have it running in the background, to, hey, this one company wants to be able to access and have just a really good API to generate some texts. So it is a broad spectrum. It really is a wild space right now. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around like the different aspects that it can enable life. And I don't really see it replacing jobs. I just see it being more like a force multiplier within the workforce. And that's kind of what we're seeing now with some of these more companies coming in saying, hey, this is more of like a force multiplier within your job positions. This is how we can help people be more efficient with the work and increase productivity for your companies. So we kind of see it more of like kind of a SaaS platform service aspect than anything. And I know some people want to call it like the new Bitcoin, the new crypto crunch, whatever. But I don't personally, I don't see that with AI. I think this is something that's going to be here to stay. That's really going to be in the long run, like going to be generating a lot of economic development.
I totally agree. I'm in the same camp that you are. When you get, not that AI is a bubble. I mean, we just said it's here to stay. But when things get frothy and the whole Web3 craze and all that, or when the market gets hot, do you all stick to that 6 to 8 week due diligence? And if you miss out on a deal, you miss out on a deal, or how do you all operate in that kind of the different environments?
Yeah, I mean, we're people too, right? Like we catch FOMO as well. Like we really do. And there are, fortunately for us, we have a really good system in place to where like, hey, I'm going to check you a little bit on this. And our managing director, Tom, is really, really good about kind of having those diligent steps of corporate responsibility in place. But yeah, like you'll catch yourself. You're like, oh man, this is a great deal. Like, got to do this now. And then there are a couple where the entire team's like, hey, this is a phenomenal idea. Like, we need to make sure that we catch this before the round closes. But yeah, we do. It's one of those things where you have to kind of be a little self-aware of like, hey, am I just riding the train here? Or is this like actually a revolutionary idea?
Yeah, it's just, it's like we never learn. Like we just
It
got through
repeats
the
itself.
Web3. Yeah, and it's just because I mean valuations are I mean they're going way up once AI is in there, and now just with the whole GPU shortage and access to be able to process that information, that's another reason why valuations are going up. How do you all look at, hey, I need to raise X amount of dollars because it needs to fund the equipment, or do you stay away from that? Do you support that?
No, I, the way we look at the fundraisers, especially, we want to have like we want to see a good idea of like what the use of funds is all about, right? Like, hey, if we are raising $1 million, 40% of this is going to go towards sales. All right, so what is that $400,000 going to get you in revenue? Like, I want you to break it down. And then you'll see, hey, some of it's overhead. I have to pay my salary, right? Like I'm a full-time entrepreneur, and we understand that as well. Like that's taken into account. Then there's also kind of the breakdown of I need a new hire for tech stack development, or I need to pay for outsourcing this. We see some outsourcing happening. Ukraine was a big source for coders for us. Turkey is as well when it comes not just us, but like in general for software development. So we really want to see a good breakdown in the use of funds, but we want to see that, like, how is that attributed? Like, how is that going to generate revenue? We want you to be able to we want to see the founder walk us through that. And that's how we want to see that raise of funds. Because if you're saying, hey, I'm just raising $1.5 million because that gets me to this valuation, it's like, all right, well, okay. But no, really, like, I want you to like walk me through this so I can understand it, because other than that it's just, you're acting like this is not real money when it really is.
Well, what's something you want to talk about that we haven't talked about? All right. Tim, anything else?
No, great. Yeah, good conversation. A lot of nuggets that people should, if they're paying attention, they are now much more informed. So good stuff.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate it. Zack, Tim, and like we talked about ecosystems, right? This is part of it.
Yep.
So I really truly appreciate what you're doing. It does. It's paying it forward. And I don't think there's anything better than that.
I do have one quick question. What do you all look for in runway right now that markets are tightening up?
Ooh, great question. I would say it used to be 12 months. I would say we're like more like 16, 18 now. Yeah. That's the runway we're looking at.
Well, all right. Dustin, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah,
those
thanks,
interested,
Dustin.
check them out at the link on the screen, Virginia, VIPC.org. Until next time, thank you very much. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the beach. Bye.